if North Carolina is even half the team that I thought they were a few weeks ago, Campbell is in the wrong place at the wrong time. Right? Mike Minter, the head coach of Campbell, we talked to him on the show a couple months ago. Really like him. Remember him from his time with the Carolina Panthers. Has one of the best Chris Berman nicknames. You know, the Chris Berman nicknames where he, says like a sentence in between. For Mike Minter, it used to be Mike After Dinner Minter, which I always thought was funny. I thought that was a good one. They're likely in the wrong place at the wrong time, right? If UNC, like I said, if they are half the team that I thought they were 3 weeks ago, 4 weeks ago, then they are going to show up with 2 weeks of pent-up anger and frustration and bad vibes and a bad taste in their mouth, and they are going to take it out on Campbell. This should not be a close game. If it is, then North Carolina's got bigger problems than even I would imagine at the moment. But in actuality, okay, looking bigger picture at UNC for this one. This week is the start of a new season for UNC. The college football playoff, I say it often, is essentially a double elimination tournament all season. You lose 2, it becomes very difficult for you, especially if you're not in the SEC, to make the college football playoff with the 4 teams. With 12 teams, it's going to be the Wild Wild West. But with 4 teams, which it is this year still, you lose 2 games, specifically 2 games of the caliber that they lost, you're eliminated. North Carolina's not going to the CFP, even if they completely turn things around. They need help from others even to make the ACC championship, right? Louisville and Virginia Tech are going to play this weekend. Whoever wins that game is going to have to lose another one just to give North Carolina a chance, and that's a tough spot to be, right? You need help from others to even make an ACC championship. So your goals are changing. Your season is changed. When you bring back Drake May to campus and you bring in a very talented supporting cast around him, and your defense is promised to be better, you have high, lofty goals. And you know what? I'll say it. I fell for it, right? I thought Carolina was going to have – I thought they were going to have a few games that could be trap games. I did not think it was going to be Virginia, and that completely upset everything. But from this point forward, right, there's a point in a season, during the NFL especially, they talk about it, where teams start getting mathematically eliminated and they start to say, well, they're just playing for pride. That's not what this is. You're not just playing for pride. You're playing for things like a 10-win season, a double-digit win season. You're playing for things like a quality bowl. You're playing for things like if things break your way and someone else leaves the door ajar, you can still make a run at the ACC championship. You're playing for things like that. Those are different things than you were playing for 2 weeks ago. It is a different season. And by the way, most of those things I just described are not the things you wrote on the top of the whiteboard in your first team meeting of the year. Right, when the team got together at the beginning of training camp and you drew out your goals, right? You probably said something along the lines of we're going to go 1-0 every day, but also we want to, and you put across the top. They didn't write like double-digit wins. They didn't write have a chance to take advantage of someone else faltering and make the ACC championship game. They didn't write make a pretty good bowl. They probably wrote things like undefeated season. They probably wrote things like ACC championship obvious. They probably wrote things like college football playoff, right? They wrote things like take advantage of, maybe they didn't write all of this word for word, but take advantage of Drake May's final year on campus and go achieve something crazy. Crazy being a good adjective. As a coach, like think of this. As a coach, as a program, you don't get that many Drake Mays. You don't. Even like there's a distance between Sam Howell and Drake May, and Sam Howell still went on to be a starting quarterback in the NFL. Mac Brown knows what this is like. He had Vince Young. Vince Young was that level of ability, that level of talent, and they won a national championship with him. But he didn't do it by himself. Go look at that roster. They had some dogs on that Texas roster that also stepped up that made it look like Vince Young did it by himself in the Rose Bowl. UNC had a chance. So from this point on, their season is different. It's not just, right? I hate that word, it's not just. But it's not just Drake May out there, but part of this season was about taking advantage of Drake May. And now you're not.
Season feels like it's not wasted because there's still a lot of games to play, but
it's not. Again, I'll go back to a conversation I had on the Adam Gold show when I joined him earlier today. One of the questions he asked me and the other guest was, can Carolina still have a great season? My answer was a smooth no. I think they can still salvage a good season, right? I'm not saying their season's a failure. They can still salvage a good season. But a great season for this roster doesn't include losses to UVA and Georgia Tech.
Yeah.
There are games you could lose that I would understand. UVA and Georgia Tech were not two of them.
Clemson on the road.
Clemson on the road.
Duke
Perfect
at
example.
Home.
Duke at home if Duke were all healthy and full steam ahead. Like there are games that I'd look at and go, you know what? I can explain that one. I can't explain those two. The season has changed.
That's a great point. I mean, now looking at this Duke game, depending on how healthy they can get.
Like if they play Duke, and this is not a disrespect to the individual, he was put in a very difficult situation. If they face Grayson Loftus, UNC has to win that game.
Yeah.
When you have the difference between Drake May and Grayson Loftus at the most important position on the field, and I know they're not on at the same time, but I'm just talking about their production and their output and their ability, you better win that game.
And that's no disrespect to Duke either when I say that. This is no longer the top 25 matchup, Riley Leonard versus Drake May, if Riley Leonard somehow is able to come back. This is not.
As Twitter pointed out to me when we talked about the game earlier, one of their responses was Wake gave the game away. You could look at it that way. Wake missed a bunch of kicks. The turnovers were there. There's a lot of tough stuff going on there, right?
Agreed.
But at the same time, Duke still had to win the game, so I'm giving them credit. I look at it like this: Campbell, like I said, hopefully for North Carolina, wrong place, wrong time. Right, it's a pay game. It's at the end of the year. You're going to get a nice check. You're going to boost your recruiting budget for the upcoming year. Like that's why Campbell is in this game. I played in the FCS. I know what it's like to go get your tail whipped so your coaches can have salaries. Like they may have caught wrong place, wrong time here. For North Carolina, this is the start of the next season, where your goals are different than they were for the first part of the season.